Welcome to another episode of the Ubrick Show, and we're going to again dive a little more deeper into the B2B process. So, Ashwin, welcome.
Thanks, buddy. I think today's episode is going to be a lot of fun because we've spoken a lot about the fundamentals of B2B and how the shift is being headed in sort of an emerging post-pandemic era. And we also discussed how we need to look at strategy as a problem. Focus on tactical was an omni-channel approach. I would like Monash to recap the last couple of episodes before we kick start into the new one. So go for it.
Yeah. So, like Ashwin was saying, Ashwin, I think this is where you play. I mean, this is your space where you look at strategy and you create actionable plans for it. Yeah. And I think in this episode we are trying to see, once you have that marketing strategy,
Gotcha.
what are those actionable plans that you can actually roll out in your company? So to start with, to as a recap, to put a marketing strategy together, you have to clearly identify that your buyer patterns have changed. Yeah, they are a lot more dependent on independent research, both online and offline, and they're also talking to their buyer groups, so the multiple stakeholders who allow people to make decisions. Yeah, so we gave examples. If you're looking for project management software, it's not just the person who's using the software, but IT, HR, finance, multiple people involved. So understanding the buying groups and what is their stakeholder in that. So that pattern, understanding the B2B buying pattern, is very important. Second thing, in a strategy, to put a strategy together, is to look at competition and how competition is solving this problem. It could be local competitors who are probably responsible of taking a market share of some of your market share, or it could be a different field altogether. You look at international competitors who you're not selling to. For example, you're not selling in the Indian or the Brazil or the US market, but how are they solving the problem for their buyers? Can we get inspired from them? Also, your strategy can look at emerging technologies. Can you leverage data and CRM connected together? Can you leverage chatbots? Putting all this together, you've actually put the strategy together. So if you guys have not watched the previous episode, we're going to keep a link on it. It's a long conversation and with a lot of actionable points. But again, Ashwin, let's look at what if you've built that strategy. You've put the vision, the roadmap for the next, not just the next quarter, but you're looking at your multiple quarters from now. You're looking at 24 months from now. And we've understood this marketing strategy should be across multiple channels. We call it omni-channel. It's just not your events. It's just not your website. It's not your social media alone. But how all this can play together. Yeah. Once you've figured that out, how do we go and create action plans? We have a plan, but the plan is as good as the execution. Yeah. So how do we create action plans, and what have you, and we've done multiple of these over the last few years. So what are a couple of your strong takeaways, and how can companies implement them profitably and measurably?
Fantastic. I think you've raised a very, very important perspective there, because there are too many things to do. There are few less people. There's way less money. So prioritization becomes key in this process of trying to evaluate and understand what gives you the maximum bang for the buck. Yeah. So for you to be able to do that, there's a HBR Balanced Scorecard, which is almost a methodology or a function that is in place for you to be able to build your goals better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
now,
what is this? Can we elaborate on
yeah.
that?
So for every company, there are 4 types of goals to focus on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The first type of goal is your revenue. Of course, that's number 1. That's what feeds and drives your company. Mm-hmm. That's number 1. Number 2 is to look at customer experience as a goal. Customer satisfaction. How happy are they in their process? What's the lifetime value? That's the customer experience goal. The third is internal process, your operations. How effective are your underlying operations for you to be able to execute at scale. That's the next goal. The fourth type of goal is innovation, learning and growth, which is trying to help your internal employees to be upskilled, is to look at products, capabilities that you can leverage and scale that are still new and driving into your product portfolio. Yeah. So 4 strong types of goals. It's very important to understand these goals. It's also as important as to describe them well so that you attach KPI to your goals. Yeah. When you look at revenue, what does your revenue from the next 2 years look like? Yeah, put that revenue number. Put that increase in terms of percentage of where you are currently. If you're looking at customer happiness experience, put a customer satisfaction goal, measure it across sales, marketing before they become a customer, and a post customer experience, which is your customer service. Yeah. Now this core it becomes very important because it ties to your lifetime value of your customer. Your business will always want to get more customers and improve your lifetime value, thereby overall increasing your revenue and decreasing your customer acquisition cost, which is your CAC. Yeah. Now, in parallel, you also look at your operational efficiency. You look at how effective are employees within your system communicating with each other. How effective are they driving their day to day? How much are they leveraging automation as a problem? Yeah. Are their processes involve way too many human touch points? How do you make those touch points more effective? Yeah. Are there any seals that you need to put on current processes to be able to communicate better? The best example is marketing and sales working in silos. Yeah. Marketing does not understand the sales problems. Sales are finding it difficult to understand why is marketing not able to driving in the leads without thinking about the business funnel and just thinking about sales and marketing as 2 different funnels. Yeah, that's a very big problem to solve. Then you look at innovation, learning and growth. You look at, we spoke about a lot of emerging technologies in our last episode. We spoke about automation. We spoke about lead scoring. We spoke about chatbots. Only 40% of the entire market is leveraging chatbots, which means that the time that is spent to understand the technology and to be able to quickly implement it to see whether you're driving results from it. It's very important when you're looking at an innovation goal, you're looking at the fundamentals of how you're able to drive, is that innovation goal impacting your business?
So Ashwin, when we look at an example, for a B2B business, imagine from the strategy we've understood that being active on social media, giving valuable content to buyers at different stages is important. And we've identified that. And if you want to put an actionable plan to this particular strategy, you have to hit these 4 boxes or
brilliant. Perfect. That's exactly what we're getting to.
Brilliant.
So just to add to that, this does not just stick with the leadership in the organization. It's not about the leaders being part of these business goals. You got to trickle these business goals into your organization to the final employee that is working on a project, because every single employee in one way or the other is impacting the business. It's what is important to understand is how and the why of what each employee is doing within the organization to how they're driving impact. Yeah.
So coming back to this social media example, because I think this is what we keep having conversation with
Go for it.
On a day-to-day. Yeah. So if we have to implement social media, what is the financial implication to it, and in the next few quarters, what will be the revenue implication?
Perfect.
We have to look at this.
Perfect.
And also we need to figure out in an organization who's going to drive it.
Exactly.
Who are the people behind it? I mean, is it going to be internal people? Is a part of them going to be an outsourced company?
True.
And how much of innovation is required in the existing process? Yeah.
Brilliant.
So I think tying up all this together, so you're giving a framework of taking one problem, or one idea from your marketing strategy, running this cycle to see how much of this is feasible? Is that what we're going at?
Perfect. It's exactly. That's a very solid example to put it. Yeah, because you're looking at who's going to implement it, how is this going to be implemented, how is the revenue impact of it, and what KPIs will move in my business. So you're actually going down to the metrics and saying, so you're taking an idea and you're evaluating that idea by saying, will this work for me or not? And how do you evaluate it? Based on your feasibility and based on your impact. Two different important metrics. Yeah. How easy or how effective can it be implemented, and what kind of a revenue impact that will bring into my system. Yeah. And if you're able to draw these two variants, then all it takes for you to implement them. Let's take ads, for example. Let's take social media. Let's take SEO. So we keep talking about, companies keep thinking about, okay, should I invest in ads? It's not money we're spending money on, not on people, but on another platform like Google, like Facebook, money, or like in LinkedIn, money is going to them. But how is that impacting your business? What kind of an audience are you reaching out there by leveraging a medium? How is that driving your leads into your system? Will that impact your sales? Will it impact your revenue? How long does it take to implement ads? You can start off within a week's time. You can kickstart with advertisements. Do you have resources in place for you to do that? Do you need to require another alternative company like you mentioned? All of this are the pieces in the puzzle that you investigate to understand whether you do something or that gets dislodged in your marketing perspective. But think about your goals. It needs to reflect on your business goal. If that reflects on your business goal, you can take up 2 to 3 different activities in priority versus the others.
And I keep seeing this when you're implementing this. Yeah. So the reason we are going into so much depth of taking one small example like social media or ads to look at the impact is because of this. Now you have a plan.
Exactly.
And if you don't have a plan, you're basically
Absolutely.
you're destined to fail.
Yeah.
Number 1. Number 2, KPIs. Yeah. When you go digital, especially because we play in the field of being digital, each platform you go towards.
Or not. Yeah. This has been used in companies like LinkedIn, like Facebook, like Google, and all the top guns. And what the outcome of this is, you try to understand, and this OKR is not just for a business. Yeah, it trickles down to sales, it trickles down to marketing, it trickles down to every single employee in sales and every single function and employee in marketing. What happens is, like you mentioned, for a marketing specialist who's executing an advertisement campaign, a click-through rate is a very important metric. But for a business leader or a general manager who's measuring the outcome of a campaign, it is the number of sales qualified lead and the revenue that's yielded from the campaign. Yeah. So that's a trickle down in terms of KPIs as well. The leadership looks at a different level of KPIs or different metrics. Was this the marketing manager? Was this the marketing specialist? Was this the marketing executive who's implementing an activity? But it's important to ensure that the trickle down KPI is measured accurately, like you said, and connected to the right system so that you're able to evaluate and say, okay, this quarter I did that particular activity and this yielded my marketing outcome and my sales outcome. So I'm still going to continue that. Was this? Stop the other one because that doesn't make sense. That has no impact.
Yeah. And to throw an example, we've seen, you mentioned about different systems talking to each other, especially marketing and sales, and to look as a business funnel versus marketing funnel and a sales funnel.
True.
Where we've seen the impact is, we've seen when a marketer tries to optimize a campaign, he looks at numbers like, how can I drive down my cost per click? Yeah. How can I drive down my cost per lead? But if you don't see the result from a sales element, yeah, we have seen examples where when you just focus on these numbers, then the revenue goes down. A practical example is, there might be an ad which is very expensive, yeah, a placement which is very expensive, a keyword which is very expensive, but it's actually worth for the business to pay that extra expense because the leads that come out of it, the conversations that come out of it, close into sale.
True.
Yeah. So when the full funnel is not seen and the full impact is not measured, you get into, I don't know, people optimizing small parts but not moving the whole organization forward.
Exactly.
I think this is where once you put the plan together, it really helps. And Ashwin, now this is, like you said, there are multiple people involved. multiple numbers we're looking at. Yeah, I mean, all the right numbers we're looking
Yeah.
at. How do we make sure that this is implemented? Because it is not like a one-trick pony. Yeah,
True.
I mean, you have to keep optimizing it and going towards. It's a journey, like what we say.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you put how should a business put measures to check these? Put checkpoints.
Perfect. So you meet at the beginning of each quarter. You put your OKRs for that quarter, and you understand how your previous OKRs have reflected for your business. Yeah. Then you go down deeper and you start having conversations on a daily, weekly, and a monthly basis. On a daily basis, you have these huddles that you can do with your teams to understand whether they're moving the right, they're moving the needle in terms of the deliverables that they're working on a daily basis. On a weekly basis, you're trying to understand, okay, now I've done this. Is this working for me? On a monthly basis, you understand, you leverage more of data and you say, okay, now next month I'm looking at X number of activities. Shall I continue with the Y that was previously decided as well? So you build the dashboards. When I say dashboard, I'm talking about any tool that can help you understand your KPIs, not just for you, but for your internal stakeholders, for your upper management across multiple lines, so that what you do at the tiniest will have an impact to the leadership level as well. So once you have these dashboards with you, you look at numbers, you look at data. Data tells you the direction of where you need to be flowing.
Brilliant. Yeah. So to throw in an example, so if any business, let's take one initiative like the chatbot. Yeah, this is something that a lot of people are trying to implement, and we see that only 40% of businesses or marketers actually leverage it well.
Super.
Yeah. So on a quarterly level, you look at, okay, the next 1 or 2 quarters, let's do the initiative of chatbot.
Perfect.
Yeah. On a daily basis, the hurdle is about the different. Now, what does it take for the team to do it? Should they find a vendor? Which is the software to use? Should they interview the somebody in the reception? Should they interview salespeople? The basically day-to-day action to make sure that this is going further.
True.
Weekly, you look at, okay, now we've implemented version 1. What is the response? How soon does it solve a problem? Yeah, and is it really working in terms of are people interacting with it? How many people are interacting with it? On a monthly level, you look at, okay, now how has it affected customer experience? I mean, how has it affected customer experience either positively or negatively? Because we have seen some companies who implemented some kind of an AI system. I'm talking about a bank, for example, where you have to spend 20 minutes before talking to a real customer, and when you have a trouble and when you want to do that, might be the customer experience is bad. And I've heard people saying that only if I click on the option, I've lost my card, is the only way I can talk to a real person.
Yeah.
So looking at this tool or this technology or whatever initiative, how's impacting customer experience? Has it increased revenue, either by reducing cost, or have you got more people into the funnel or on the business funnel? So I think this is what you look at on a monthly basis. Yeah, and I think this discipline, like what you implement, is what you can take these initiatives and then make sure that they're implemented, they're measured, and seen through. Is there anything else that you want to add where there are multiple initiatives and you need to prioritize? Yeah. And how can a business think about prioritizing these initiatives? Yeah, we're talking social media, you're talking about CRM, you're talking about a chatbot, you're talking about which trade show to go to. So how do you prioritize these things?
Yeah, again, going back to the revenue, the impact which is in terms of revenue and the feasibility perspective, how can you implement it? Whether you can implement it internally, externally, what's the financials involved, and what's the outcome, what's the revenue impact from that activity that you do? The impact feasibility metric multiplied with each other will give you a prioritization matrix where you can look at whether to keep activities or to dislodge them. Yeah. So again, going back to trying to add to what more capabilities can be leveraged, I think you got to look at your internal team. Does your internal team have the capabilities for you to leverage Y number of activities that you want to do a couple of quarters from now. Let's say you have to implement a chatbot like you mentioned. Probably they need to go on a 1 month or probably a 1 week workshop, or probably do some learning online for them to understand how to implement and measure a chatbot successfully. Probably if you want to implement this in Q3 of 2022, you got to do this in the Q2 of 2022. So that's learning and development as a goal, which is being able to equip your internal organization. Do you need to, let's say you want to do ads, do you need to hire a new person? Yeah. And what does that hiring process look like? What are the capabilities do you want in your system? Do you want to do an internal hire or throw up an external company for you to solve that problem for you? So that's part of the learning and growth perspective. The other element is to also, like we mentioned earlier, is to also look at your competitors constantly. Like every quarter, just like how you're doing just how you're trying to understand how your business goals are, it's also important to understand what these competitors are doing out there, because they are constantly in the race trying to eat a portion of your pie. So they're ready to be in the game to do as much as what you're doing. We've seen this example. One of the manufacturing companies who we're working with currently, whatever we did for the first quarter of 2021 is actually being implemented by a couple of competitors right now at the Q3 of 2021. We see them doing the exact process. Why do we know this? Is because we're monitoring them continuously. We're trying to understand what they're trying to do, which gives us in a real good advantage, because we know what should be the approach to the activity that we did earlier and what we need to improve on that front, and also to understand what should be our next goal, our next activity for us to outbeat what their internal systems have leveraged. So quarterly competitive analysis is a solid. And just to add, and of course we spoke about marketing and sales process, marketing and sales working in silos, thinking about a business funnel, being able to help marketing and sales talk to each other, to communicate with one another, to understand their problems better, to build automation to be able to solve these process problems will definitely yield in improving the effectiveness of the results that is coming from the individual teams. So you look at multiple goals, you understand where you are, you build capabilities that will help you achieve the goals. Take a step back. When you're doing all of this, don't do this with your day-to-day. When you're doing your work on a regular basis where you're solving 10 problems, don't take this as your 12th or the 11th problem. Probably go on a workshop with your internal stakeholders. And get on a workshop and start brainstorming as to how you want to solve business goals and OKRs, and stabilizing your ability to plan for the next steps. I think that's my takeaway from this entire
brilliant
episode.
I think we've covered a lot of ground where we've understood that it's just not the strategy but the plan behind it, and either the impact and the people behind the plan is also very important.
Absolutely.
So if this is the takeaway from this episode, to make sure that we follow a framework. It could be this or another one, but we follow a framework and we put our strategies through this rigorous framework to see whether we can actually get this implemented. And Ashwin, I think these are amazing points. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
for bringing this together.
More than happy.
If you guys have something else to suggest, please let us know in the comments. If you've liked what you've seen, tell us what especially you liked, and we would love to do more of that. So guys, till now for this, thank you so much, and we will see you soon.
Cheers guys. Good day.